My parents forged my signature for a $180,000 loan against my inheritance, then told me family shares everything. I didn't get angry, just called the bank's fraud department and showed up at their vacation with police. Now they're facing felony charges, and my phone hasn't stopped ringing since last night. 28 missed calls, 15 voicemails, and a group text from extended family claiming I've destroyed the family. Let me back up and explain how we got here. It started with a letter from Citibank that arrived last Tuesday, not even addressed to me, but to my parents' house where I haven't lived in 3 years. A late payment notice for a loan I never took. Out. My mom accidentally opened it, then called me all concerned, her voice dripping with that fake sweetness she uses when she's hiding something. Sweetie, did you forget to make a payment on that loan? The one against Grandma's trust? There's a notice here. I felt my stomach drop. What loan? I never took out any loan against Grandma's inheritance. The silence on the other end lasted just a beat too long. Oh, well, there must be some mistake. Don't worry about it, I'll take care of it. That's when I knew. That particular silence, I've heard it my entire life. It's the pause before a lie. The moment my mother calculates, what story will work best? So instead of letting it go like I usually would, I drove straight to their house and demanded to see the letter, $180,000. $180,000 borrowed against my inheritance, the money Grandma Eleanor left in trust for me when I turned 30, still 5 years away. And there at the bottom of the loan document was my signature, except it wasn't mine. Close, but the Y was all wrong, and I never dot my I's with that little circle my mom does. Updated. Holy crap, you guys, I didn't expect this post to blow up overnight. I can't respond to everyone, but I'm reading your comments and appreciate the support. A lot of you are asking if I had any suspicions before this happened. Looking back, there were definitely red flags I ignored. Have any of you ever caught your parents stealing from you? To understand why this hit me so hard, you need to know about my grandmother Eleanor. While my parents were busy renovating houses they couldn't afford and leasing luxury cars they'd eventually return, Grandma was the one who taught me about money. She grew up during the Depression, worked as an accountant for 40 years, and saved everything. Live below your means, she'd tell me while we clipped coupons at her kitchen table. That's how you build wealth. When she died 3 years ago, I wasn't surprised to learn she'd left me a significant inheritance, about $650,000, in a trust that would release when I turned 30. What did surprise me was how quickly my parents' attitude toward me changed. Suddenly, I was included in their vacation plans. My dad started calling me my successful daughter to his golf buddies, even though I was just starting out as a financial advisor. My mom began sending me links to condos I could help them buy for their retirement, all while the money sat untouchable in a trust for 5 more years. I deflected their hints and kept living my normal life. I continued renting my small apartment in Chicago, driving my 2014 Honda Civic, and building my client base at the financial firm where I work. Meanwhile, my parents upgraded to a larger house in a gated community, started taking cruises twice a year, and my dad mysteriously retired early despite having no visible retirement fund. It didn't fully click until I saw that loan document. They had somehow convinced Evermont Bank and Trust, the managers of Grandma's trust, that I had agreed to borrow against my future inheritance. I called the bank immediately. "Yes, we have the paperwork right here," said the customer service reppy, in a bored voice. "Signed by you on March 17th, notarized and everything." "That's impossible. I never signed anything." "Well, someone did," she replied, her tone making it clear this wasn't her problem. "I requested copies of everything, the loan application, approval documents, disbursement records." Then I called a forensic handwriting analyst, thank you Google, and scheduled an appointment for the next day. I also contacted the fraud department at both banks involved. What I discovered made me physically sick. The loan had been taken out 6 months ago. The money had been transferred directly to my parents' joint account, then immediately split. $80,000 toward the down payment on their new house, $65,000 to pay off credit cards, and $35,000 for a boat they'd bought last summer. The one they told me was just a small splurge after Dad's work bonus. But here's what really did it. Looking through the papers, I found a checking account set up in my name, one I never opened, with automatic loan payments scheduled to come from it. My parents had been making the minimum payments for months, but recently missed one, probably because they drained that account too. They had systematically stolen my inheritance, forged my signature, and set up a whole system to hide it from me. All while posting Instagram photos from their Alaskan cruise with the caption, "Making memories with our retirement fund." I spent the next day gathering evidence, the forged documents, the handwriting analysis, $500 well spent, bank statements showing where the money went, even screenshots of their social media posts bragging about purchases made with stolen money. I put everything in a folder labeled evidence, in big red letters, Maybe a bit dramatic, but I was running on pure adrenaline at this point. Then I drove to their house. Mom answered the door in her Lululemon yoga outfit, fresh from her mindfulness class. The irony wasn't lost on me. "Oh, honey, what a surprise. Dad and I were just talking about you. We're thinking of booking that Cabo resort for Christmas. You know, the all-inclusive one. We could get adjoining rooms." I placed the folder on their kitchen island. "We need to talk about the loan you took out in my name." The change in her expression would have been fascinating if I wasn't so furious, like watching a mask slip in slow motion. Dad walked in from the backyard, still wearing his golf gloves. "What's going on?" he asked, but his eyes darted to the folder. He knew. "The $180,000 loan you took out against Grandma's trust, using my forged signature." Mom recovered first, sliding into the kitchen chair with practiced casualness. "Oh, that. Well, we were going to tell you, but it just never seemed like the right time." "The right time," I repeated. "To tell me you committed fraud." Dad's face flushed. "Now hold on. That's a very serious accusation. What we did was forgery and fraud," I finished for him. Mom waved her hand dismissively. "Family shares everything. That money was just sitting there, and we needed it for the house. You'll inherit this house someday anyway, so really, we're just investing your money for you." I almost laughed. "The house you can't afford? With the mortgage that's already underwater?" Dad's temper flared. "Listen, your grandmother would have wanted us to enjoy that money as a family, not have it locked away for years while you hoard it all for yourself." That was rich, coming from the man who once borrowed my entire college fund for a failed restaurant investment, forcing me to work full-time while taking classes. The same man who told me Grandma Eleanor was wastefully frugal at her funeral. "Grandma wanted me to have financial security," I said, keeping my voice steady. "She put that money in trust specifically so it wouldn't be touched until I was 30. Mom's eyes narrowed. "So what exactly are you planning to do? Sue your own parents?" I closed the folder and picked it up. "I'm going to get my money back." "Good luck with that," Dad snorted. "The loan's in your name. You signed for it." "No," I said, heading for the door. "You signed for it, and that's the problem." I spent the next week building my case. I filed reports with the fraud departments at both banks. I talked to 3 different lawyers. I contacted the district attorney's office and filed a police report. The bank froze the remainder of my trust and launched their own investigation. Ma'ina. Parents, meanwhile, seemed to think I was bluffing. They left for Florida 4 days later, their much-needed beach vacation, according to Mom's Facebook, staying at the Ritz-Carlton in Naples. The same trip they'd invited me to join last month, claiming they got a great deal on a package. Now I understood what that deal actually cost. My future. When the bank's fraud investigator called to tell me they had enough evidence to pursue criminal charges, I made a decision. My parents weren't taking this seriously. They thought family loyalty would prevent me from following through. They needed a reality check, so I booked a flight to Florida. The detective assigned to my case agreed to coordinate with local police. I flew out on a Thursday morning, landed by noon, and by 2 p.m., I was standing in the hotel lobby with 2 Naples police officers while the bank's fraud investigator explained the situation to the hotel manager. We found my parents at the poolside bar. Mom was sipping a martini while Dad chatted up another couple about his early retirement after a successful career in finance. The look on their faces when they saw me walking toward them with police officers, I'll never forget it. Mom's martini, glass actually slipped from her hand, shattering on the concrete. "What is this?" Dad demanded, standing up so quickly his chair toppled backward. "This," I said calmly, "is what happens when you forge someone's signature for $180,000. The officer stepped forward. "Sir, we need you both to come with us. There are some serious allegations of fraud that need to be addressed." "But this is ridiculous," Mom sputtered, looking around frantically as other guests started staring. "She's our daughter. It's a family matter." "Fraud isn't a family matter," I said. "It's a criminal one." As the officers escorted them away, Dad turned back to me, his face contorted with rage and disbelief. "You'll regret this," he hissed. "Family is everything." I watched them being led through the hotel lobby, past the marble columns and crystal chandeliers they'd paid for with my stolen money. "No," I said, though he couldn't hear me anymore. Family doesn't steal from family. Updated. Thanks for all the comments. Many of you asked how my parents reacted after being confronted at the hotel. It was surreal. Mom kept saying, "This is all a misunderstanding," while Dad threatened to disown me. The officers were professional but firm. Some people are suggesting I'm heartless for pressing charges against my own parents. Would you have given them another chance, or was involving the police the right call? The legal process was brutal. My parents were charged with multiple felonies, forgery, fraud, identity theft, and grand larceny. They posted bail and immediately launched a campaign to paint me as the villain. My phone exploded with messages from relatives, family friends, even my third-grade teacher who somehow got roped into this mess. How could you do this to your own parents? After everything they've done for you. They made one mistake and you're sending them to prison? One mistake. As if forging my signature, stealing $180,000, and establishing an elaborate scheme to hide it was just an oopsie moment. As if the systematic financial abuse they'd inflicted throughout my life was just tough parenting. My cousin Amber, always, the family peacemaker, arranged an intervention at her house. I agreed to go, naively thinking someone might actually be on my side. Instead, I walked into an ambush. 15 family members sitting in a circle, ready to explain why I needed to drop the charges for the sake of the family. Uncle Peter, who fancies himself the patriarch since Grandpa died, spoke first. Your parents made a serious error in judgment, no one's denying that. But pressing charges? That's not how family handles things. How should family handle theft? I asked. Aunt Diane leaned forward, her voice gentle like she was talking to a child. They were going to pay it back. They just needed the money temporarily. With what money? I countered. They're underwater on their mortgage, maxed out on 6 credit cards, and have no savings. How exactly were they planning to repay $180,000? Uncomfortable. Glances circulated the room. No one had an answer because there wasn't one. My parents had no repayment plan. They never intended to pay back the loan. They expected me to absorb the debt when I received my inheritance. 5 years of compound. Interest accumulating on a loan I never took. Cousin Amber tried again. But they could lose everything. Their house, their retirement. They already lost everything, I said, when they decided to steal from me. I left the intervention knowing I'd probably burned bridges with half my extended family. But for the first time in my life, I felt unburdened by the obligation to protect my parents from their own terrible decisions. The court date came faster than expected. My parents hired an expensive attorney who tried to argue that they had implied consent because we had discussed the possibility of accessing my inheritance early. The prosecutor dismantled that argument with a single question. If you had consent, why forge the signature? In the end, they took a plea deal. 2 years probation, mandatory financial counseling, and full restitution of the $180,000 plus interest and fees. The judge also granted my petition for a financial restraining order, barring them from accessing any accounts connected to me and requiring the trust to implement additional security measures. The money recovery has been slow. They had to sell the boat immediately and put their house on the market. The court liquidated their investment accounts and seized the remaining cash from their checking accounts. They're now living in a rented condo half the size of their previous home, driving vehicles appropriate to their actual income level, and working through the financial counseling program required by their probation. As for me, I've learned painful but valuable lessons. I've installed credit monitoring services and freeze my credit regularly. I check my accounts daily. I've updated my will to ensure that if anything happens to me, my estate goes to charitable foundations, not family members. Most importantly, I've established firm boundaries with people who prove they can't be trusted. My relationship with my parents is complicated now. We're not estranged exactly, but we're not close. Our interactions are cordial but distant, like business associates who once worked on a project that ended badly. They still don't fully acknowledge what they did wrong, preferring to frame themselves as victims of circumstances and my overreaction. It's been 18 months since that poolside confrontation in Florida. The legal proceedings are finished, and about 70% of my money has been recovered so far. The trust has been restructured with stricter protections, and I've been granted early access to a portion of it. Grandma Eleanor would approve of the irony there. The most significant change has been in me, though. I've gone from being the family doormat to someone who stands up for herself. I've reconnected with Grandma's best friend, Martha, who told me Eleanor always worried my parents would try to access my inheritance. She knew their patterns, Martha said over tea in her small, immaculate apartment. That's why she made it a trust in the first place. I've also started a support group for adult children dealing with financial abuse from parents. We meet monthly at a community center downtown, sharing stories and strategies. Many of us have similar experiences, parents who view their children's resources as extensions of their own, who gaslight and manipulate when confronted, who weaponize family loyalty to enable their exploitation. Last week, I received a letter from my mother, handwritten, not an email or text, which means she wanted to create a permanent record of her words. It wasn't exactly an apology, more like a carefully worded acknowledgement that mistakes were made and hurt occurred on both sides. Classic mom, turning her crime into a mutual misunderstanding. The final paragraph caught me off guard, though. I've been thinking about your grandmother a lot lately. She would have been proud of how you handled this, not the police part. You know how she felt about airing dirty laundry. But standing up for yourself, that's something I never taught you properly. It's the closest thing to genuine reflection I've ever received from her. I haven't responded yet. I'm not sure I will. Some relationships can't be fixed with a single letter, especially when the ink is still wet on probation papers. Last month, I turned 27, 3 years until I received the remainder of my inheritance. But the truth is, I've already received the most valuable part of Grandma Eleanor's legacy. Her wisdom about boundaries, her example of financial independence, and the courage she instilled in me to protect what's mine. That's an inheritance no one can forge a signature to steal. Updated. This will be my final update on this situation. I've read all your comments and appreciate the overwhelming support. Some asked about what happened to the notary who verified the forged signature. They're facing disciplinary action and possible criminal charges. Others wondered about my relationship with extended family. It's strained, but a few have come around after seeing the evidence. What would you do if you discovered your trusted family member had been stealing from you for years? Would you press charges or try to handle it privately?